What's up, Taiwan? I'm Reece Ayers with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. We begin with the latest on Typhoon Krathon, which is bearing down on the country, set to bring heavy winds and rain. A so-called Typhoon Day has been declared, meaning all schools, offices and businesses have closed their doors. Krathon has slowly been making its way around Taiwan's southwestern coast and is expected to swing northeast across the island. It's now likely to make landfall on Wednesday night at the earliest, later than earlier predictions, before hovering over the country for a few days. Extreme rain warnings are in place in 15 counties and cities, especially along the south and east coasts. 22 roads or bridges are closed and over 100 landslide warnings are in place in Hualien County on Taiwan's mountainous east. Around the country, dozens of people have been reported injured and one person is missing. Flights have also been cancelled to outlying islands, leaving hundreds of passengers stranded. Meanwhile, the crew from a Barbados-registered ship that flooded in the outer current of Typhoon Krathon has been rescued, but an investigation is ongoing into oil that may have spilled from the ship. While the typhoon is expected to weaken as it crosses Taiwan, officials are still warning of the potential for deadly floods and landslides. Rick Glowett is live for us in the southern city of Tainan, where the storm is expected to make landfall. Rick, how are things looking down there in Tainan?
Well, this is the harbour front of Anping, the ancient port district of Tainan. Wind, rain picking up here, but it's the water level of the harbours and rivers that are concerning the 70,000 residents of this district, many people living just metres away from the water. We spent the morning with this district's chief. He talked us through some of the preparations they're making as Typhoon Krathon barrels towards this region. They've deployed 12 pumps to take water out of drains to prevent roads from flooding. They put barriers and sandbags over the front of underground car parks and houses to prevent them from flooding. And in this district alone, for 70,000 people, they've set up 16 evacuation centres in places like schools and community centres should people need to flee their homes.
我们之前这边的地下室面有碰到淹水过，所以说我们现在只要一有那个台风的或是大雨的一个讯息的时候，我们会先做防备哈。
This typhoon coming just a couple of months after the deadly typhoon Kami. Many people saying that lessons were learnt there, and the city officials we've been spending time with saying that they're confident in their preparations to keep this city safe. But this is a rare typhoon, both in its intensity and in its direction. It's hitting Taiwan not from the mountainous east, but from the west, hitting large urban centres like this city of Tainan. There's also concerns that as the typhoon approaches the coast, that low pressure could cause a storm surge, increasing the risk of flooding. So many preparations here in Tainan, but some of them still untested.
Thank you, Rick. That was our reporter Rick Glowett following the progress of Typhoon Krathon in Tainan. Israel is vowing to hit back after Iran sent a barrage of missiles into the country on Tuesday. Tehran targeted the country with nearly 200 ballistic missiles, but according to Israel, they caused little damage. Many were intercepted by Israel's Iron Dome of defense system and by US warships. Rosie Greninger reports.
Alarms sound in Israel as a barrage of rockets shoot through the sky. An unprecedented attack on the country by Iran. Go! 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 180 ballistic missiles were launched. Iran saying it was in retaliation for the assassination of senior Hamas, Hezbollah and Revolutionary Guard leaders, including Ismail Haniyeh and Hassan Nasrallah. The extent of damage caused is unknown. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says 90% of its missiles successfully hit targets, while Israel claims there was minimal damage in the central and southern parts of the country, injuring 2 people. One Palestinian man in the occupied West Bank was killed by falling shrapnel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed retaliation.
איראן עשתה הערב טעות גדולה, והיא תשלם על כך. המשטר באיראן לא מבין את נחישותנו להגן על עצמנו ואת נחישותנו לגמול לאויבינו.
It marks the second time in Israel's history that Iran has launched a direct attack on it, the first being in April this year, amid soaring conflict and tension between Israel and Iran's close allies Hamas and Hezbollah. The strikes came as Israeli soldiers continue to conduct what they're calling a limited incursion into southern Lebanon, targeting Hezbollah members. The international community has been swift to denounce Iran's actions.
But I utterly condemn this attempt by the Iranian regime to harm innocent Israelis.
US President Joe Biden reaffirmed Washington's support of Israel, with the White House confirming it assisted Israel in shooting down the majority of the rockets.
Israel, with direct assistance from the United States and its partners, was able to successfully defeat this attack. This was a brazen, unacceptable attack by Iran.
Despite the US claiming it was a failure, Iran says they now consider the issue closed, indicating they aren't planning further attacks, but are prepared to strike again if Israel launches a retaliation.
اگر رژیم صهیونیستی که به دیوانگی رسیده کنترل نشه توسط امریکا و اروپا و بخواد چنین جنایت‌هایی رو ادامه بده و یا علیه حاکمیت و تمامیت ارضی ما وارد عمل بشه، عملیات امشب با چند برابر بزرگی تکرار خواهد شد و تمام زیرساخت‌های اونها مورد اصابت قرار خواهد گرفت.
But with Israel promising this attack won't go unpunished, it leaves the people caught up in the conflict in fear as the Middle East region edges closer to a full-scale war. Dolphine Chen and Rosie Greninger for TaiwanPlus.
6 people have been killed and at least 9 others were hurt after a shooting and knife attack in the Israeli city of Tel Aviv. Police say the killing spree happened on Tuesday night in a light rail carriage in Tel Aviv's Jaffa area before continuing onto the platform. The 2 attackers were shot and killed by civilians. Investigators suspect terror as the motive in the attack. In the US, vice presidential candidates Tim Walz and J.D. Vance have taken the stage for their first and only scheduled debate. With just over a month to go until the election, the 2 sparred over the Middle East, immigration, and the state of US democracy. Joyce Tseng reports.
A cordial start to a high-stakes debate. The U.S. vice presidential candidates had a policy-heavy exchange as they approached the final stretch in the tight race for the White House. The televised debate was hosted by CBS News in New York, a Democratic stronghold and former home of Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump. His running mate, Senator J.D. Vance from Ohio on the left, and on the right, Democratic vice presidential candidate Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. They began by tackling the Middle East, where Israel and Iran have fired missiles in an escalating crisis. Walz saying steady U.S. leadership, as exhibited by his running mate Vice President Kamala Harris, is what's needed now more than ever, not the volatility of the former president.
It's those that were closest to Donald Trump that understand how dangerous he is when the world is this dangerous. When our allies see Donald Trump turn towards Vladimir Putin, turn towards North Korea, when we start to see that type of fickleness around holding the coalitions together, we will stay committed.
Vance rebutted by pointing to Trump's, quote, effective deterrence from his time in office, also stating that a second Trump presidency would support Israel however it decides to defend itself.
Donald Trump recognized that for people to fear the United States, you needed peace through strength. And look, it is up to Israel what they think they need to do to keep their country safe, and we should support our allies wherever they are when they're fighting the bad guys.
The candidates this evening appearing more courteous than their running mates at the jab-heavy presidential debate 3 weeks ago. At times, they were even showing sympathy for the other amid debating hot-button issues like gun violence.
First of all, I didn't know that your 17-year-old witnessed a shooting. I'm sorry about that, and I hope that you're doing okay. Christ have mercy.
Despite the decorum, the differences in the candidates' perspectives were evident. On the economy, Vance blamed economists for weakening American trade against its competitors.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that.
The senator also blaming the high cost of living on President Joe Biden's policies, which he pointedly called the Harris administration, painting the vice president as the primary decision maker. Meanwhile, his rival Walz, who has spent time in China, teaching there in '89 and later starting a program to bring American students over, said Trump would have benefited from such a trip.
Being there, the impact it made, the difference it made in my life, I learned a lot about China. I hear the critiques of this. I would make the case that Donald Trump should have come on one of those trips with us. I guarantee you he wouldn't be praising Xi Jinping about COVID, and I guarantee you he wouldn't start a trade war that he ends up losing.
The Minnesota governor, though, who once claimed he'd been to China dozens of times, with this campaign later revising that it was closer to 15, was pressed about competing claims on whether he was in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square uprising in Beijing in June of '89. Walz saying he misspoke.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this. So I will just, that's what I've said.
All in all, a quick-moving debate on multiple domestic and foreign issues, with largely polite disagreements between the Midwestern candidates. Though VP debates generally don't make or break the election, in as tight of a race as this one, the slightest shift in public opinion could be decisive. James Lin and Joyce Zhen for TaiwanPlus.
Former Taipei Mayor Wen-je has said no to a fifth round of questioning over alleged corruption. As John Van Trieste reports, this won't be the end of a scandal shaking up national politics.
Former Taipei Mayor Wen-je's lawyer remains tight-lipped at the prosecutor's office. His client has been in custody for weeks amid allegations of corruption. Prosecutors think developers of a shopping mall in Taipei bribed officials to expand its floor space when Ko was mayor. But how much Ko knew of the deal isn't clear. Their findings will have a national impact, as Ko is the head of one of Taiwan's big three political parties. Ko's supporters say 4 rounds of questioning have left him worn out. He's refused a 5th round that was supposed to happen on Tuesday. Due to health concerns, prosecutors aren't forcing the issue.
有没有可能北检一直不断的在重复问类似的问题，或者是不断在问一些兜来兜去，今天跟你扯北市科，明天跟你扯金华城，一直不断去解释这些问题，你会觉得心理上面的那个压力当然会很大。
As police hold other suspects in the case, a government working group is taking its own look at the scandal.
我们也会重新再把这个相关的调查报告送交监察院去调查，或者是弹劾决策首长的行政责任。
Ko's silence won't stop prosecutors from digging. His fall could leave his Taiwan People's Party badly shaken and perhaps even upset the political balance of power, meaning this is just an intermission in a scandal that will continue to be in the national spotlight. Ryan Wu, Hank Xu, and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taipei City Councilor Chen Chongwen is out on bail after spending over 190 days in detention. He's accused of allegedly pressuring the city government into awarding a contract for the city's public daycare surveillance system in 2013 to a specific company. Prosecutors charged him with corruption and forgery, among other offences. On Wednesday, a judge granted Chen bail of $250,000, but barred him from leaving the country. He's been ordered to wear an electronic monitor. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, we leave you with images of the French Fries World Championship in the north of France. Tens of thousands of people came to see chefs compete to make the best fries. I'm Reece. Take care and see you next time.